Hey guys, today on Sports Spectrum, Daniel Carlson, Las Vegas Raiders kicker. His brother's in the NFL as well with the Green Bay Packers, but we're going to focus on Daniel today and his story, his journey of faith and football and putting his trust in Jesus. It's a great conversation. Can't wait for you to hear it. It's coming up in just a moment here today on Sports Spectrum. First, I want to remind you about our friends at Compassion International. You can go to compassion.com/sports spectrum and you'll see a list of children there waiting to be released from poverty. That's what Compassion is all about, releasing kids from poverty in Jesus' name. This is a great ministry. I so into this. We have 2 sponsored children. I've gotten to go on trips with Compassion to the Dominican Republic and see the program in action, and it's dynamite. It's awesome, and I cannot recommend them more. If you're looking for a charity to sow into and to donate to, but you're also really helping a child and their family with hope and coming out of poverty, food and education and medical care and vocational training. It's all done in Jesus' name. They get to go through the church program as well. Compassion International is the real deal. Go to compassion.com/sports spectrum, compassion.com/sports spectrum, and pray about sponsoring a child today. Here's Daniel Carlson with the Las Vegas Raiders. Welcome to Sports Spectrum, Daniel.
So good to be here. Excited to get into this conversation. And I mean, I've been following y'all's platform for a little while, and excited to get connected and hopefully share some of my story on the sports world and obviously on the Jesus world as well.
Yeah, let's stay on the Jesus world to start. I like to do that because I think it centers our conversation around who should be worshiped, not you or me, but him. So tell me about Christ. Tell me about Jesus and who he is to Daniel Carlson right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's everything. Obviously, he's my foundation. It was fun going through this Easter season. It's just always a reminder of the sacrificial love he poured out. And I have little ones now. I just had a third, and we talked about this briefly beforehand. But I think when you have a kid, it's easy to it's a little easier to understand that unconditional love of a father to a son or a daughter. And just, when we got a 10-day-old baby in the house now, and going through Easter season, it was just a fun reminder of, wow, like seeing that baby being born and then thinking of there's nothing in the world that this baby could do that would stop me from loving it. And that's how, Christ and God loves us and sees us as sons and daughters. And no matter how far we step away from, his purpose and his plan in our life, and we just screw up and mess up over and over again, he still just looks at us and says, I love you. I'm going to take the first step. I'm going to go to the cross, die for you, with that Easter season. And, it's such a cool, way to kind of comprehend that unconditional love a little better, I think. And so that's been really fun with Easter, and, just been something that's front of mind here recently, of just that, hey, that sacrificial, unconditional love that he just, no matter what, he loves his sons and daughters. He paid the price, ultimate. He saved us, redeemed us, and there's nothing we can do to earn it. It's just a grace. It's a gift, and I mean that's everything. And if you accept that and build your life around it, there's hope, there's freedom. And so just choosing that and continuing to remind myself of that daily and dying to myself. I mean it's a daily process, as we all know. But just continue to take a step in that journey. And I'm learning and, hopefully getting better and better at it day by day.
Yeah, I think, we all are flawed people, obviously, but when you have a child, and how old are your older kids?
So I got 3.5, 2, and 10-day-old.
And brand new. Yeah, 3.5 and 2. So these are perfect ages to realize that sin is rampant in our lives.
Yeah.
And that we're born into it, right? Because you don't have to teach a child to say no or to be defiant. That's when you know that that sin is like, fresh inside of you. But I think you don't love them any differently. If they do go mess up and they do talk back or whatever it might be, you don't love them any differently. There's discipline, but there's love. And I don't know about you, but when that happened with my daughter, it really gave me a clear view on the father's love. The prodigal son and the prodigal dad in the story that Jesus tells in the parable. That becomes real life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like it's just because there's so many relationships we have, there's a certain amount of trust and, conditions put on a relationship. And I mean, even, a husband and wife, you have to choose a covenant, but as soon as the baby's born, it's just, hey, no matter what, you're always going to be my son. You're always going to be my daughter. I'm always going to love you. And so, with our latest baby being born right before Easter and then going to, Easter service and just, celebrating that, reading books about it reading the Bible with our younger kids and trying to explain the Easter story and be like, Jesus went to the cross because he loves us. Even though we, we're messed up, we left him, we didn't, we betrayed him, all that stuff. He still just loved us no matter what. And just really always understanding that daily and just appreciating that and being grateful for that. And then living out in the freedom and, the hope we have from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. He's Daniel Carlson with the Las Vegas Raiders. When did the decision to make Christ Lord and Savior for you take shape?
I mean, I had a great foundation. I grew up in a Christian household in Colorado Springs, and my parents gave me a great foundation. And then it wasn't until college at Auburn that I really, finally took that as my own faith. For a long time, it was my parents' faith, and I was trying to do the right things, not to disappoint my family and my parents, but it wasn't. There was no thought of my own of, hey, what do I actually believe? And so obviously high school, college, that is kind of the time where, most young adults will start to question those things. And I was just really blessed to be surrounded by great resources, great churches, great people that poured into me. And so that's when I really started to understand. And I mean, it's obviously a continuous journey, but that's where I started to really pick up my own faith and deciding, hey, this is what I'm, building my life around, building, my decisions around, building my hopes and dreams, and whether it be sports or family, whatever it is, this has got to be my foundation, because otherwise I'm just counting on myself, and that's a tough place to be.
All other ground is sinking sand, right? I think is how the song goes. If I'm talking to Daniel Carlson at 10 years old, who is that version of Daniel Carlson? What was he into? Who were his heroes? Who was that version?
I was not much has changed. I mean, I was into sports. I was a soccer player. I always dreamed of being the next great. I'm half Swedish, half American. So my dad was from Sweden, and obviously soccer's huge over there. And so I was dreaming to be the next great Swedish soccer player, or American, because I had dual citizenship. But and then, somewhere along the journey that kind of switched to football, but I'm still kicking the ball. So it's similar, but growing up in Colorado Springs with a younger brother he played at Auburn and is now in the NFL, Anders Carlson, and then an older brother who's living in Sweden, and he was a soccer goalie. So me and younger brother would just practice shooting soccer balls on him all day. That was kind of our form of daycare, I guess, when we weren't in school. And so we would just do that, and that, I guess, paid off and helped us learn how to kick a soccer ball, which turned into football later on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about kicking. Obviously soccer propelling you into football. What's the pivot that takes shape when you go from soccer to football?
Yeah, I mean, it's instead of kicking a different kick every time, it's kicking the same kick over and over again. You have limited amount of steps just because guys are trying to block the kick. But it does get a little more boring in some ways. But for me, who I always kind of like the individual sports. I like the control aspect of, hey, if I mess up, it's on me. I don't have to necessarily. I mean, I do count on other guys. Don't get me wrong, but it's more, hey, I can make or break it myself. And I like that individual sport aspect while also being on a team.
Yeah.
And so it was unique where, I could push myself as much and get the results I wanted out of it. At least I thought I could. Sometimes it's not always how it goes. We're not always in control. And that's been a fun lesson to learn through this sport. But yeah, I've just really fallen in love with transitioning from soccer, and it's a great team sport, beautiful game, still love it, but into football, which is just a whole nother sport of there's so many moving parts, so many people doing different positions. And, I think my position is very unique, and especially the football world. But it all adds up into this awesome, awesome team sport that I've grown to love.
Why Auburn? What was it about Auburn? Because you were Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yeah.
Auburn, Alabama is not right down the road.
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to get out. My parents, taught us to be very independent. They actually went to Alabama. So
Okay.
they're a Roll Tide family, and I grew up
So
cheering
that's
for
maybe
them.
shocking
So that
even
was
more.
even more, yeah, that was a bit of a interesting choice to break to my family that lives in Alabama. But I mean, I did have just familiarity with the state of Alabama. I had grandparents and cousins and stuff spread out throughout the state. So I'd spent some time there, and then I just fell in love with the campus. And I thought it was a great balance of school and being able to pursue the degrees. And I wanted a red shirt, which was kind of a unique situation, but I just was like, I mean, I played high school ball at a school that maybe had like 200 people at a game
Hmm.
tops. I was like a little nervous to step out into, okay, 100,000 in Bryant Denny or wherever it is, like maybe like extra year to kind of figure it out wouldn't be so bad. And then I could get an extra year of school. Cause I never really had dreams of the NFL. I came to football so late. I was just kind of figuring out one day at a time. I was like, I just want to make the high school team. And then after I kind of made the high school team, I was like, well, maybe I could, try and play in college football instead of college soccer, and then kind of surprise myself with that. And then, the next step didn't happen till later, but, I felt like there was no big master plan. It was just kind of go to school, get a degree, go do my best, play football. And then just God had a lot more in store for me, I guess.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, in terms of the desires to play in the NFL, because there's
Mm-hmm.
this highs and lows of 2018, right? So
Yeah.
you're a fifth round pick by Minnesota, which is phenomenal for a kicker to
Mm-hmm.
be in the fifth round. Let's stop right there for a second and have you share your draft day experience, because then I want to get into all that took place in 2018 and how you ended up with the Raiders. But take me to the draft day
Yeah.
experience, Daniel Carlson.
Yeah, it was fun. It was I had an idea from just the pre-draft process that I was probably headed to either Minnesota or Miami, unless some, smaller chance came out from, nowhere. But, two very different places. And, so I just recently been married. I think probably I guess 3 months we had been married, and so we're in Colorado with friends and family, just seeing where we're going next. And yeah, I think there was some still ignorance to the process, but it was just, I mean, it was such a great day. It
Right.
still is just such a great day, even though it was quick once we got there. But Minnesota gave us a call after a couple prank phone calls from friends, which was much appreciated throughout that very nervous day.
Oh,
um,
you say
but
much
that,
appreciated. Is that a good thing or a bad thing
well,
that they were
it
doing?
did break the ice a little and loosened you
Okay.
up when you're, waiting and waiting and waiting. Because yeah, if you're not one of those early guys, I mean, and a kicker, I mean, you're not expected to go early anyways. But it is no matter what, it's a long day until it happens, and then it's a great day, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the phone call from Minnesota and very excited. Had never been to Minnesota, so excited to see what that was like, and really enjoyed it when I got up there. But I mean, as we'll get into it later, it was a short stay.
Well, that's what I want to get to, because you go through camp. And by the way, if you're a fifth round pick, there's never a guarantee you're going to make the team, obviously. And there's always competition because you need more than one for most positions in the NFL, much less a kicker. So you go through camp and you make the team. welcome to the NFL, right? Because it's just what, 2 games later, and you think you're pretty set here, and you're living out a dream that you didn't even have, and all of a sudden you're released. So I want to ask you, take me to the time in being released by Minnesota and signing with the Raiders and what that was like for you. Was there doubt? Was there fear? Was there questioning this whole decision of going to the NFL? What was that time like?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely all of it, doubt and fear, and there. I mean, we're all human, and there's all moments of that. But I was. It was funny because a few weeks before that, while I was in camp, still kind of competing for the job, and I mean, it was going well. But I mean, like you said, there's just no guarantees in the NFL, especially for a rookie. And so I remember having a conversation with my mentor and the coach that actually got me into kicking, that went to our local church in Colorado, and he was the one that was like, "Hey, we need a kicker. Do you want to come try it out?" It's funny how God used that little conversation and that connection into, really changing my life. But we were having a conversation in Minnesota. He came to visit, and it was like, "Hey, if God, took this all away from me, and I was cut, never played football again, like I'd still be so thankful. Like I, got a degree paid for, got school paid for, got a master's paid for, then my wife, really set myself up for the next step and phase of life. And if, it's all gone tomorrow, like I have so many great memories, so much appreciation for my time, like it's going to be okay." And I mean, it's easy to say that when you're still in it, but then a few weeks down the road, I've been cut and I'm fired, and I'm like, is it really going to be okay? And like I said, the flesh wants, me to panic and worry. And, I had moments, but there was so much, support and people reminding me like, "Hey, it's not about your plans. It's not about, you didn't plan this out anyways. This has all been God's design on your life. Like, let's wait and see what he has next." So just while you're waiting, while you're figuring it out, yeah, keep working, keep hoping, but let's just see what God has in store for its next chapter. And so there was 4 or 5 weeks, which at times felt like an eternity,
Yeah.
but it was just sitting and waiting and training, and obviously going to workouts and talking with teams and stuff like that as well. But it was really like there were so many days where I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I was still in the NFL. I was very young and naive, and I really didn't have a gauge for whether I measured up or not, or if I just would have the right opportunity, because so much is opportunity. But sure enough, the Oakland Raiders at the time were able to give me a call, and I was able to work out with them, and the rest is kind of history. But there was just a moment of you're kind of waiting in the middle of the storm, and you're not really sure like what's next. Doesn't seem like it's working out like maybe thought it would or you planned it to. But I mean, God's plans are so much greater than ours, and just trusting in him. That's you can find that peace that surpasses all understanding. And so it was fun in hindsight, because there were definitely moments of that with, I mean, my wife and I were married for 5, 6 months at that point. And so, we were just in Minnesota, like, what do we do? What's life look like now? But just resting in that and being like, all right, God, like, we're trusting in you. Let's just wait and sit with you, be still, know that you're God, know that you have plans for us, and they're good plans for us to prosper, not to harm us.
Yeah.
And it was fun to kind of put all that into test. Like I said, in hindsight, it wasn't always fun at the time. I'm not going to act like that is how it is, but in hindsight, I'm very thankful that I got to experience that. I think it strengthened me as a man, as a marriage, as a football player, in just so many ways.
Yeah, it refines you. I mean, there's all sorts of stories in God's word that look through considering it all joy when we face trials, or it's okay. The Apostle Paul saying, "I'm stuck in chains here, but man, my trust is in Jesus, and I put my faith in him no matter what I'm going through." Obviously you weren't in chains, you were just without a job for 5 weeks, but you got the job with the Raiders. I'm curious what it was like to find your confidence again, because there's so much that goes into all of sports with confidence, but for the kickers that we watch in the NFL, it feels like if you miss 2 or 3 and you let it get to you mentally, your confidence is shaken, and it doesn't matter what kind of talent you have. How quickly was it for you to be able to find that confidence once even before the Raiders called, but once you get to Oakland, then Oakland?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Because like you said, I think it is such a big part of the job, the mental side. And I think the mental side can be summed up in, hey, do you have confidence in the kick you're about to take?
Yeah.
And for me, especially after that, I mean, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in Daniel Carlson. But, and that's where, like we were talking about earlier with a foundation, what foundation are you on? Are you on sinking sand, on your own plans and your own hard work? And I mean, I think there's obviously value in working hard, but I think I've learned to find my confidence in, hey, God has a plan. I can play freely, because if I get cut or not, if I have the best game of my life or have the worst game of my life today, like, that's part of God's plan. And I've seen it before, and he's been faithful, and he'll continue to be faithful. And playing from that spot gives me so much more confidence. And I mean, I literally every game I'm reading Bible verses before that are just filling me with confidence in, not in me, but in God's faithfulness and in his promises. Because if it were up to me, like, I'm not the most confident person just naturally. Like, I know I work hard, and I know I, have some abilities that, should 1 + 1 should equal 2, and I should have some, success from that. But when I show up on game day, and I don't know how it is for everybody else, but I definitely, have doubts every time. And
Yeah.
so that's where, hey, I don't want to put my faith and my confidence just in Daniel Carlson. I want to put it in, someone that I know will sustain me through the storms, through the good, through the bad, no matter how it's going, no matter what season I'm in. Whether I'm a rookie, whether I'm in my 7th year and, things are going well, I don't want to ever, think I've got it all figured out and I'm in control. I want to, really heavily rely on God, because that's where I get my confidence from.
Looking back on the last 6 seasons, what's your favorite God moment as an NFL player, as a member of the Raiders?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would just say seeing guys on the team, seeing them take steps. We've had it. It's fun being, going into year 7 now. You obviously meet so many different guys, and you start as the young guy, and I'm kind of one of the older guys on the team, and I started as a guy joining a Bible study, and now I'm starting one of the guys like leading Bible study and helping out with chaplain stuff like that. And it's fun seeing different guys' journeys, from the young guys to, because it's such you know a league that there's so much transition. Guys coming in, guys coming out, guys moving, young guys, old guys retiring, all this stuff, and so you meet so many different players from so many different walks of life. But just seeing like the individual curiosity of somebody being like, all right, let me think about this faith thing, let me think about this Jesus thing a little more seriously, and then seeing them start taking steps. And then, I mean, even hearing later on, like we had one teammate that he started asking some questions. It was very casual. We had some conversations. He came to a couple chapels, stuff like that. It was very casual though. And then later on, hear from another teammate, hey, so and so was, just baptized, and you would have never expected it from where he started to where he was with his next team. But it's, all those little seeds are planted, and those relationships are built, and just being able to share your faith with different people of different walks, different lives, that we've all gotten to come together through football, and then hopefully glorify God through that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bible studies, you mentioned chapels. It makes me think about the rhythms and disciplines that so many of the guys that we talk to put in place to stay connected to Christ. So we're out of season right now while we're recording this, and you're in Alabama, you're in Auburn, and we were just talking about a Bible study that you said you attended this morning with our mutual friend Ren Aaron, who's leading it, who's just an amazing guy and a pastor in Auburn. But what is the disciplines look like for you in and out of season? Let's start in season, with chapel, with Bible study, but even that time alone with God. How are you able to kind of manage all that, and what's that look like?
Yeah, I think it's, prioritizing your time. It's easy to, think the priority is football, especially in season. But, just figuring out, hey, whether it's reading the word in the hot tub or reading the word, like before you get up for those early workouts or whatever, you got to prioritize and set aside time, because if you don't set aside that time, you'll find other ways to get busy really quickly, with, your other priorities. And so, in season, I mean, it's great. And I've found a great structure and rhythm of life, I guess, where, I found a church in Las Vegas, Hope Church, we go to on Thursday nights. It has a Thursday night service, which is great for someone who works on Sunday morning. And then, I mean, for 6 years now, I've been listening online to Sunday morning messages at my home church here in Alabama, Church of the Highlands. So it's been nice to have those resources. And I mean, not everybody is fortunate to have a setup like that, but then, teen chapels, teen Bible studies. I mean, that's such an important relational aspect, because it is a unique position, and it's hard to sometimes make friends and feel like you're in a community, in these NFL cities or through this job. And so to be able to, talk about things with other guys and, go through life together outside of just the football side of it, is so important. And then, yeah, obviously the daily personal time with the Lord. That's really the one that's going to help you grow and feed into you daily, so that you can hopefully, live out what Christ is calling us to do.
Totally. That's awesome. Let's have some fun on the way out here. What's the best kick that you felt like you've ever made as an NFL player? And it may have even been in practice, but let's say in a game situation when you just hit that thing and you knew it was good.
It was actually one in preseason, 2 years ago, where right after I kicked it, I turned around to my punter, who's a very good friend, and I was like, I just crushed that. And I didn't even, it was one of those,
You
a
just
lot of
knew.
times you kick it and you kind of know, but that one was I turned so fast, and it was so there was just no doubt. It just was one of those perfect feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun, because I mean, it cracked him up pretty good before the ball was even through the uprights. My favorite kick, was definitely when we sent the Raiders to the playoffs in 2021, and just had a wild year and a lot of ups and downs. And then, we had that situation where if we tied the game, us and the Chargers were going to the playoffs. But if either of us won it, we would obviously go at a better seed, and someone else would come in, the Steelers. And so, yeah, we're 2 seconds left and the game was tied. And, all week we had been joking about, well, what if we just decide to tie it and, agree to that, just to assure that both of us get in the playoffs. But it was kind of a no consequence kick, it felt like. But we kicked it, made it to playoffs the first time in my career. And it was just, a pretty surreal moment, and, fun to see all the ups and downs and trials of that year, especially. And it was just a great group in the locker room. To see us be able to go have a shot at playoffs and stuff was really special.
I remember that game. I remember that kick. It was a Sunday night game. And I also remember about 4 months later sitting in a room with Ben Roethlisberger interviewing him. He had just retired. And I had to ask him because he posted, I don't know if you saw this on Instagram, some video. I think he was wearing a Raiders helmet, if I'm not mistaken.
That's funny.
And it was hilarious. And Ben was like, listen, I want to get into playoffs. And if I got to root for another team to do that, whatever it takes. I'm wondering, did you get a bunch of texts from any of the Steelers players?
It was actually really cool. A lot of the Steelers fans were donating money to a charity that I had, I guess, posted about or something, on my social media.
That's awesome.
And I partnered with, and so all of a sudden I'm getting texts from these organizations we don't know what's happening, but we're getting a bunch of small donations from Pittsburgh and all this stuff. And I was like, this is really cool. And, it was really cool to just see the Steelers fans so happy about the Raiders win.
That's becoming a trend with those passionate fan bases. We saw it with Buffalo a few years back with the Bills. They do that. Kansas City's got great fans. So it's really fascinating to see that. Describe, as we wind down here, describe the Raider fan, because you talk about passionate fans. That's about as passionate as you can find.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to play in Oakland and see kind of that history and that side of it too. But I mean, they love Raiders football. I mean, I played football in Alabama in college, so like, yeah, I've been around passionate fans for a while now.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's just such a fun atmosphere on game day with Raiders fans, and I mean, they do just good and bad. And, unfortunately for the Raiders, there's been some bad years in the last 20, 30 years, but we're looking to turn that around. But I mean, just through it through, they're just die hard no matter what. And so it's a fun, environment on Sundays or whatever night we're playing. But yeah, I've been very, very thankful to end up in Las Vegas and be a part of this journey from Oakland to Vegas. And hopefully we'll get some more wins here.
Yeah. Well, he is Daniel Carlson. You got some wins as a dad, too, now that you got 3 children. Congrats on that. You're playing a zone defense now, bro.
Zone defense. We're figuring it out slowly.
It'll take shape. It'll take shape properly, I'm sure. I mean, I see my brother with 4 kids, my other brother with 5, and I'm like, I have 1. And I think of anybody with multiple kids, it's got to be a challenge. So you got 3 now, and you and your wife, it's going to be awesome watching that situation take shape. So congratulations, and congrats on all the success thus far, and we'll be talking to you again down the road for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
And many thanks to Daniel Carlson for being our guest today on Sports Spectrum. He was awesome. Can't wait to watch football return in the fall and watch Daniel Carlson do his thing with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's a stud. Like, he's one of the mainstays. And when you see his journey and the fact that he was cut by the team that drafted him just 2 games into the season, and the fact that he was not only picked up by the Raiders, but he's now entering year 7 with the Raiders, that's pretty awesome. And he signed that contract extension a couple of years ago. He's got a few years left. And it's really been fun to watch Daniel Carlson do his thing as one of the great kickers in the NFL. I mean, he led the NFL in field goals made in 2021 with 40 out of 43 field goals. He's a 2-time All-Pro kicker. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2022. He set the NFL record for most 50-plus yard field goals made in a season with 11. So that's Daniel Carlson in a nutshell. But you can hear in his answers and the way that he thinks, the way that he wants to live his life is focused on Christ. He must increase, Jesus. I must decrease. That's what Daniel Carlson exuded for me when I'm talking to him here on Sports Spectrum. Just love his heart for the Lord. And a shout out to Auburn University. Shout out to all the Raider fans. Shout out to my friend Ren Aaron, who connected him and Daniel Carlson and I, that is. And just a shout out to all of you for tuning in to today's show. You can find us at our website, sportspectrum.com, for all of our content. And we are really excited because in just a few months, very soon here, we're going to have a Sports Spectrum app that you can download where all of the content can be in one place. You can listen to the podcast there. You can watch all of our videos. You can read our latest articles. You can do our devotionals. It's all going to be in the Sports Spectrum app that's coming very soon. And we are excited. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm pretty excited about that. Also, if you like to watch podcasts instead of listening, because you can listen on Apple and Spotify and Google Play, but if you like to watch podcasts, we're putting all of our podcasts now in video form on our YouTube channel. So go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Sports Spectrum Podcast, and you'll see this podcast up, as well as all of our other podcasts from the recent couple months that we've been doing this now. And you can go to YouTube and watch them and not just listen. So I know I like to watch podcasts sometimes when I'm home or just trying to have it on in the background. And when I go on walks and I go on the treadmill or when I'm driving, obviously, I listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple. But if you want to watch these podcasts, our video versions of the podcast are all available at our YouTube channel. Just search Sports Spectrum over at youtube.com. We appreciate you guys. We love you. Thank you for the support. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next time for another conversation right here on Sports Spectrum. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon. Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.